Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. My name is Mars, and today we are going over Godrea. I cannot express how much I dislike this unit. It's why I've been dragging my feet on it, but without a doubt, she is probably the best damage dealer in the game. If she isn't the best, she's right up there. Her rotation it looks complicated when you're trying to figure it out when you're in the game, but ultimately she does stupid good damage, okay? So that's why, even though I hate her, I don't plan on potting her, I don't plan on using her, I can't even bring myself to do a Tour of Destruction, I just get too bored too fast, I just hate her. She's just so effective too. So that it's certainly undeniable. So I'll put my personal loathing aside, and we're going to go ahead and look at this unit and show you how you can get the most value out of her. So this is going to be a little bit unconventional because her rotation looks very complicated. I'm going to do the best that I can to simplify it. So we're going to do what we normally do, where we look at her TMR and her STMR, and then we're going to go to some images to help break down that rotation. So first of all, Photon Core, this is her Trust Master reward. It gives you 40 flat attack, and it gives you 50% true double hand, as well as 50% physical and magical killers to fairies, which are spirits, reapers, and reapers by 50%. So this is actually probably one of the reasons I would be excited about pulling a Godrea, because you could use that on like anybody against any fairy or reaper opponent. So that's awesome, especially because fairy and reaper killer are relatively uncommon. So this is dope. This is sweet as. All right, now her STMR is a little odd. It is a two-handed gun with 177 attack, which is really good, and it increases the potency of healing items and makes it so that you can do some AoE item use stuff. This seems pretty niche to me. It's not the sort of thing that I personally really care about, but you know, it can do the job if that's something that you need. So if you need some little item healy weirdness, go ahead and get her gun and use that. From this point on, let's go ahead and take a look at her rotation, because I can go ahead and dive into her skill set and all the skills that she has, but the bottom line is you care about the rotation, and I've broken this down as simply as possible. Okay, so we're gonna first look at her recommended opener, which will cover the first 5 turns of her rotation, and then we will look at her mid-fight rotation, which will cover every 5 turns after that. So literally, you do this first 5 turns, and then the next set of the next slide is going to show her next 5 turns, and then you just repeat that section over and over again. So for this opener, we're looking at her, basically her opener that gets her set up to do damage and then does 3 turns worth of damage on turns 3, 4, and 5. So she is a little bit like Bart's in that for the first turn or 2, she's not going to be doing much, if any, damage at all. And then in subsequent turns, she has high damage output. So the first ability we want to use on turn 1 is Photonized Cartridge, and you can choose which cartridge you want based on what element you are looking to imbue yourself with. So you have options for Nitrogen, Ionic, and Excimer, and those give Ice, Dark, and Water element respectively. So pick whichever one you want to use against whatever opponent you want to use it against, and you can of course imbue somebody else with this skill. That's one of the neat little things that it does, is it lets you imbue somebody else, but I haven't really used it for that, because you do want to be using Godrea's in pairs if you want to maximize her damage. So that is going to be the first ability that you cast, and the other handy thing it does is it gives you a permanent modifier boost to your relevant chaining skills. So that is super handy. And then the second skill that you want to activate is a matching element cartridge. So if the first one you use is Photonized Nitrogen Cartridge, you want to just use Nitrogen Cartridge after that. And that's because that adds another modifier boost, as well as imperiling whatever element you have equipped. So make sure you match your element cartridges in that case. So Nitrogen to Nitrogen, Excimer to Excimer, or Ionic to Ionic. And that'll cover your first turn. That's basically your imbue, your imperil, your self buff, And yeah, it gives you some modifier buffs forever as well. So that's turn 1. Turn 2, you're going to go ahead and use GE98 Photon Cartridge. This preps you for Quadcast, which I think is the most important thing, is it gives you that nice little Quadcasty doodad. And it buffs your attack by 250% for an equivalent duration, and it increases your damage to fairies and undead if that happens to be relevant. So this is what you're going to use to prep for your outgoing burst damage. So that'll give you the Quadcast that you're going to need for the following 3 turns. The other ability that you want to use in this turn is Radioactive or Ultraviolet Cartridge. These ones change to be Photonized Ultraviolet or Photonized Radioactive Cartridge on the same turn that you activate Photon Cartridge. So if that you activate GE98 Photon Cartridge. God, all these names are so confusing. So using this first cooldown, make sure that your radioactive or ultraviolet cartridge will be the upgraded version, okay? So in here it says normal, and when you're activating it in your skills, it will simply say radioactive or ultraviolet cartridge, but it will give you the effect of the photonized radioactive or ultraviolet cartridge. And you pick just one of these to use after the 98 photon cartridge. It gives you a modifier boost. It gives you additional killers, which, GE98 photon cartridge already gives you that. And then it increases your defense and spirit or your attack and magic for all allies. So basically you pick whichever one you want the most. Do you want an attack magic boost or do you want a defense spirit boost? Ultimately for Godrea herself, it doesn't matter as much because the most important benefit that it gives her is an increase to her modifiers for 9,999 turns. So Photon cartridge, the GE98 Photon cartridge, is for the Quadcast as well as the attack buff, and then radioactive or ultraviolet charge are for the modifier boosts for 999 turns. Okay, cool. So then for the following 3 turns, you're going to use Quadcast Plasma Laser. Okay, and now Plasma Laser is a Divine Ruination skill. So it hits 7 times, and this is going to be her highest overall potency skill. All right, you can use any of her other chaining skills if for whatever reason you would like to, but if you're running a pair of Godreas, there's no reason to use anything other than Plasma Laser 4 times. She doesn't have any finishing skills. She doesn't have anything weird where you want to use one and then another or anything like that. Just go ahead and bring out the quadruple Plasma Lasers, get your easy chains in, and that's going to provide you a lot of damage. So that's your opener. One additional note about this opener is that on turn 5, the imperil that you apply on turn 1 is no longer going to be active. So you either need somebody to externally apply an imperil, or you can use the first of your 4 casts to reapply one, or you can just go without it. Just be aware that on turn 5, you will not have the imperil that you apply on turn 1. So if you see your damage really, really low on turn 5, that is the reason why. Now, talking about her mid-fight rotation, this is the 5-turn rotation that you are going to repeat over and over and over again until whatever you're fighting is dead. And I promise you it won't take very long, but in case it takes more than another 5 turns, it is super simple and you just repeat this over and over and over again. And this tails in from the opener, so you just finish your opener and then you go ahead and continue with this mid-fight rotation. So the first thing that you want to do on turn 6 is activate your Limit Burst. Now your Limit Burst is super important to Godrea's rotation. You definitely want to have it leveled if you do plan on using her, because it imperils all enemies by 120% for her 3 preferred elements, which is pretty outrageous by itself. But in addition to that, it grants her access to triple cast, and that makes her next turn even better. So it's just the perfect way to dive back into your rotation. So, turn 7, you activate GE98 Photon Cartridge again so that it grants you the Quadcast that you need, and then you use your complementing Elemental Cartridge to imbue yourself, and then you activate Atomic Energy. Now this is a neat little trick. I know Godrea's main confusion when you're looking at her kit is all the different modifiers and all the different things that stack and that do weird stuff and whatever. We're going to go ahead and take a look at atomic energy a little bit closer, because when you look at the skill description, it is super, super confusing, but we can break it down very simply. So when you use atomic energy, it does an auto buffing sort of thing that casts on Godrea herself, turn over turn, for like 5 turns, okay? So for the first 4 buffs that she buffs on herself, they do not stack with each other, and they are not permanent. They only last for the turn that they cast on her. But the last buff that you apply to yourself lasts for the 9,999 turns. So on that 5th turn, you're going to get your final permanent mod boost to your rotation. So by turn 10, you're doing your maximum damage, okay? So keep in mind that the first 4 are temporary. They will only last for the 1 turn that they're available, and they do not stack with each other, even if they would last for more than 1 turn. And then that final one lasts for the rest of the fight. And then the reason you want to reactivate atomic energy every 5 turn rotation is because those 1 turn buffs do stack with the infinite turn buff that you get at the end of the atomic energy cast. I know it's a little bit confusing, so it's so hard to explain, but just know that using atomic energy on turn 7 is going to increase your damage over a higher duration of turns, and that's because the 5th cast of auto casting atomic energy is permanent and it stacks with other atomic energy buffs, so you just want to be using atomic energy so that you always got those buffs coming onto your modifiers. So yeah. Do you see why I hate this unit? If she was pretty, if she was cool looking, okay, then it would be a little bit easier to be like, alright, this is complicated, 200 IQ rotation, no big deal. But instead, she's hideous and hard to use. Well, it's not even that she's hard to use. This rotation's actually very simple. You just repeat these 5 turns over and over and over again. Whatever you're fighting is going to die very quickly, you know, but I don't know. Oh, man. I don't know. Anyways, I said I would put it aside. Alright, let's look at her builds real quick. One of the advantages that Godrea has over other damage dealers right now is that she is super easy to build, and she can get some pretty tanky stats along with it, which is super, super nice. Now, if you're going to go along the more budget route with Godrea, we do have a pretty standard entry-level build with only 5-star base TMRs, and it gets her to around 2,800 attack, which is super awesome. Yeah, there's not a lot to say about it. She does go with standard true double-hand builds, but I will say one of the more irritating things about Godrea is that she has an oddball amount of true double-hand in her passives. She has 225% true double hand as her passives. So I don't know if anybody's out there sitting on, 25% true double hand, but if you're not, you're probably going to just overcap her true double hand by 25%. That is going to be, it's unfortunate. Everybody likes those neat, clean numbers, but you just got to go with capping out your true double hand, and you're going to overcap it by 25%. But it's fine. That's her best in slot build. Now, as far as weapons go, she can equip daggers and throwing weapons and guns. However, there are not any two-handed throwing weapons that I can remember except for maybe Yuffie's, but nobody pulled for her, so nobody has that. And a two-handed dagger is a joke, so, you're going to use a gun. And Lagoa is a 4-star base TMR with 130 attack, and that's pretty good, and you can get a rare item world roll on it for an extra 40% attack. And then the rest of the stuff on here is to just boost your attack, and it leaves an open slot for a killer materia, and all around, pretty simple to gear. It does overcap her attack by 10% and her true double hand by 25%, so you're sitting right in a sweet spot with a build like this. Now, if you do want to get to the upper end builds for Godrea, this is where she actually shines the most. She does super, super well in the hands of players who have outrageous gear. She does great for everybody else as well, but if you have whale tier equips, prepare for death and devastation, because you can get her to over 3,000 attack using her STMR. Some rare item world roll luck, throwing some STMRs in there, some upgrade packages in there, but the bottom line is you can basically cap again on 400% attack and 300% true double hand, you overcap on both by a little bit, and it leaves her open with 2 materia slots, which is super nice for some flexibility. Either equip some killer materias in there, or go ahead and equip some tanky stuffs if you need to. But you may not need to, because with this build, she's at over 10,000 HP and over 600 defense and spirit, which is pretty solid. Like, that's really, really good. So anyways, her builds are very straightforward. Just throw a gun in her hands, build her for true double hand, you'll be overcapped by a little bit, and then build the rest out for a percentage. Equip any necessary tankiness equips, and then leave a slot open for materia. Go ahead and slot a killer in there, and that's it. She's honestly super easy to build. So with that, let's talk real quick about whether or not Godrea is worth the investment for you. If you happen to go on the Halloween banner because you were going for either Karten or Godrea, and you wound up with Godrea and you didn't want her, well, too bad. You're stuck with the best unit in the game as far as damage goes, at least for now. You know, it may change, you know, later this week when King Rain comes out, but right now and even into, you know, the future a little bit, Godrea is going to be a real top contender, and it really, really bugs me because she looks outrageous. She looks like a high school chemistry teacher who had, you know, she had a bad job and she's taking it out on the kids, or she's protecting the kids. I don't know. She can't be chemist Batman. I don't know. I see, as I'm speaking right now, I'm looking at her kit, and it's just making me sweat. It's making me uncomfortable. It's making me angry. The bottom line is, that's why you probably won't see much content from me about her, but I wanted to help you out, okay? A lot of people asked for this. This is for you. If you want to use Godrea, if you want to use an amazing damage dealer, if you want to upgrade your party, she can absolutely do that. So if you have her, great, awesome, totally worth it. If you already have her, if you're thinking about pulling for her or anybody else on the Halloween banner, I would encourage you to wait until maybe we know a little more information about the upcoming King Rain banner, because he could be a better value. If you're just looking for a single physical damage dealer, you may have better luck with him. So that's my official guide on Godrea, and probably the last time you will see her in one of my videos, so enjoy it while you can. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see everybody in the next video.